It's now award season in Hollywood, and big surprise, no one's happy. The divide between film critics and actual moviegoers has increased to the point that this year's awards just don't seem real, quite frankly. And so today, with the Academy Awards on the horizon, I wanted to discuss this divide and why people are, I don't know if they're angry, they're definitely disappointed. And so without further ado, welcome to the second episode of Screen Factor. Firstly, I want to talk about the films that it seems the Academy has sided with this year and why the average moviegoer isn't happy. Starting with the musical thriller from 2024, Emilia Pérez. The film follows the lawyer of a powerful leader in the Mexican cartel and their journey of trying to escape this life. The boss undergoes a gender-affirming surgery and then leaves her old life and family behind in order to try and start a new life. But then weirdly brings the family back under the pretense that they're now a distant relative who isn't the boss. It's weird. But this didn't stop many from praising this movie, including the likes of James Cameron and Guillermo del Toro. It also won 3 Golden Globes and has been nominated for 13 Academy Awards. It is now the most nominated foreign film in the history of the Oscars. But these people seem to be in the minority because a lot of people were not very happy about this movie. First and foremost among them being the entire country of Mexico. Many people have accused this film of making light of the very serious issue in Mexico of the drug cartels. One notable example being a woman named Artemisa Belmont, who is a person from Mexico who has lost many family members to these cartels. And the movie's also being accused of being very stereotypical in both its portrayal of Mexican culture as well as trans people. And it probably doesn't help their case that the majority of the cast aren't even Mexican themselves, and the movie itself was filmed on a soundstage in France, which you may know is not Mexico. This film has received widespread attention in Mexico, namely people trying to either get it removed from cinemas or just telling people not to go see it. And the film also didn't hold up to many critics either. The broad claim is that nothing in this movie was represented well. Instead, it was merely portraying this dramatic caricature of Mexico, trans people, the whole deal. Film critic Sarah Ty Black said, "It's a shallow and soulless outing that has no faith in the intelligence of its audience, squanders the considerable skills of its lead actresses, and in its shallow and inert politics is pathologically audacious in the worst sense." Which is all to say, it will probably win an Oscar, which, that's crazy. Paul Tassi of Forbes has said in regard to the movie, "Emilia Perez is not a good movie. Not a good crime drama, not a good musical, and by all accounts, not a good representation of the groups it focuses on, namely Mexicans and trans people." And that is also according to many Mexicans and trans people. Now, of course, as we know, critics don't often represent the opinions of the larger movie-going audience, which is why generally movies will have rankings based on critic and audience scores. And boy oh boy did audiences also not really like this movie. At best, the audience consensus on Emilia Perez is that it's only okay, which is not what you want to hear about a film being nominated for Best Picture, and 12 other categories, of course. It's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with a score of 75%, but the audience score is abysmal. And it's not that much better on Letterboxd, with audience scores trending at 4 stars or lower. And as of recording this video, 45.2 thousand users have given this movie a half-star rating, which is the lowest rating you can give on Letterboxd. And to re-emphasize at this point, Emilia Perez is the golden child of the Academy Awards this year. It has been nominated for the same number of awards that Oppenheimer was last year. And just look at the audience scores for those two films side by side. It really does say it all. And the next big player at the awards is The Brutalist. The Brutalist is a historical drama about a Holocaust survivor who flees post-war Europe to America, and eventually there meets a very wealthy businessman and becomes an architect. Now, this in itself is a really great concept for a story and for a film, and is the kind of thing that the Academy Awards has really favored in the past. And it's received tons of praise from both critics and audiences, but there's just one problem. However, there are many moviegoers who say that The Brutalist should be disqualified from the Academy Awards because of its use of AI in certain stages of the production. And not just in minor instances, they used AI in ways that made it integral to the final product of the film. A big example is some of the structures that Adrien Brody's character creates in the film were first conceptualized using generative AI, which, you know, if you're making a story about a guy who becomes an architect, and instead of hiring some kind of architect or architecture consultant to conceptualize these structures, you just use AI to make them, that's a pretty bad look. It kind of undermines the point of the film in my opinion, but I digress, I guess. AI was also used on Adrien Brody's voice to enhance his Hungarian accent in the film, which is also not great considering he's being nominated for an award for Best Actor in a role where some of his performance has been enhanced using AI. So yeah, not a great look overall. And I'm pretty split on it personally because from what I've seen, it appears to be a really powerful story that resonates with a lot of critics and a lot of audience goers. It's only a vocal minority that I've seen who think that it should be disqualified on the grounds of its use of AI. And while its use was very integral to the production of the film, if the film itself is telling a really great story with a powerful message, should it be disqualified? It's a complex question that I don't really have a good answer to. It's not a good look. Now, these are the two films that are receiving the most attention going into the Oscars this year. And as a result, many moviegoers are seeing the movies that they believe to be in the running for some of these awards getting passed over. And so now I'm gonna go over some of the films people think are going to be snubbed at this year's awards. The big one, and my personal pick for Best Picture of 2024, is of course Dune Part 2. This of course being the second part of Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of the sci-fi novel by Frank Herbert. And it has received 5 nominations, including a nomination for Best Picture. But many fans believe that it was not nominated for some awards that it deserves. A lot of the sentiment that I've seen online is that Denis Villeneuve should have been nominated for Best Director for making this movie, and that Timothée Chalamet deserves a nomination for Best Lead Actor for this movie as well. Even though he probably won't win the award anyways, because being snubbed at the Oscars is kind of his thing at this point.
Man, just another lonely night with my Dune popcorn bucket.
And of course, the enjoyers of horror cinema are hoping for huge wins for The Substance and for Nosferatu. The Substance is a body horror film about a fading celebrity and her desperate pursuit for relevance by taking this experimental drug that creates essentially a younger version of herself. But being a body horror film, it obviously doesn't go well. The Substance has been nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actress. And Robert Eggers' remake of Nosferatu is a gothic horror story about Ellen Hutter and her paranormal connection to the Count of an Eastern European nation who also happens to be a literal demon. Nosferatu has received a grand total of 4 Academy Award nominations. And I've seen a lot of outcry from people who really enjoyed this movie that Lily Rose Depp and Bill Skarsgård deserved nominations in the category of Best Actor and Best Actress for their roles in this movie. And I agree that would be a huge win, but honestly, I'm just kind of glad that horror cinema is getting some recognition at the Academy Awards. It feels like the Academy still largely sees the horror genre as a B-tier genre at best, so it's nice that coming out of 2024 we got these prime examples of what horror cinema can be. And in other news, the Sebastian Stans have been eating good lately, particularly for his roles in the thriller/drama A Different Man, as well as the historical drama The Apprentice, in which he plays a younger Donald Trump. The latter of which earned Sebastian Stan his first ever Oscar nomination for Best Actor, which was just great to see. I know a lot of people have been saying that he deserved to get that nomination for A Different Man. I haven't seen either of these films, so I can't weigh in on this. But at this year's Golden Globes, he did win a Golden Globe for Best Actor for A Different Man. There's a lot of very promising candidates at the Oscars this year, but honestly, in reality, I could just see Emilia Perez sweeping this year's Oscars. Which of course begs the question, are award shows even real at this point? The Academy Awards is still to this day the most prestigious achievement or award in the realm of cinema. But it feels like the gap between what gets nominated and what audiences actually enjoy in the theaters is getting wider and wider. So who do these award shows even represent at this point? Who decides what gets nominated and what doesn't? In the case of the Oscars, nominees are voted on and decided by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. And different award shows go through the exact same process, but through a different motion picture arts organization. And these Academy members, as I found out very recently, are not required to watch all of the films that are nominated, or even finish some of those films. I can't confirm this, but I've heard reports of people nominating The Brutalist, a 3.5-hour film, for the Oscars, having not even watched the entire film. And this may not be true in all cases, but it is starting to feel like the main divide between the people who decide what get nominated for the Oscars and the people who actually go to the cinemas to watch movies. The big thing that's causing the rift between these two is that people who go to the movies actually enjoy cinema, and these members of the Academy don't. At least they don't care enough to actually watch the films that they're nominating. Insert joke about people who enjoy cinema who are just like, oh, 3.5-hour movie must be cinema. And so the Oscars will take place as normal, but personally, I probably wouldn't put too much stock in the outcome. There have been some amazing films this year, and very talented directors, actors, and crew members being nominated for these awards. But the outcomes this year is probably just gonna be a lot of Emilia Perez and The Brutalist and Wicked. I'm still holding out hope that some of these awards will go to projects that really deserve it, but I'm not optimistic. And with that, this has been the very short award season recap of Screen Factor. I love movies, and I don't want this video to feel as though I'm portraying cinema in a negative light. Like I said, there have been amazing projects that have been put forward in the last few years. I just wouldn't put too much stock in the actual award ceremonies. In my personal opinion, you don't have to be someone who enjoys Academy Award-winning, super artsy films to be considered a lover of cinema. I do love a lot of movies that have received critical acclaim and Academy Awards like Oppenheimer, but that's not my only criteria for what makes a film good. In the past, I've given movies like Oppenheimer and The Lighthouse a perfect score in my mind, but I've also done the same for Pacific Rim, because I think that's an incredible movie. And if you do want to see more about the movies I watch and how I rate them, because honestly there will probably be a lot of movies to come that I will not talk about on this channel, then you can feel free to check out my letterboxd. I can't believe I've never actually shouted it out on this channel before, but I've been active on there for the last couple of years. I'll link it in the description below if you're interested. Sometimes I post in-depth reviews of movies on there, and sometimes you get whatever this is. So definitely check it out if you're already on Letterboxd. I've been having a lot of fun there lately. And of course, more episodes of Screen Factor will be coming out in the future as I receive more news coming out of the film industry. I make it sound all fancy like I'm connected to someone in the film industry. I just read articles. I read lots of articles. And because I don't know when the next episode of Screen Factor will be, I do want to, before we go, acknowledge the tragic passing of director David Lynch on January 15th. He was a legendary filmmaker behind these mind-bending pieces like Twin Peaks, Eraserhead, and of course his 1984 adaptation of Dune. And as people who've been following the channel will know, I did a video a while ago talking about my big problems coming out of that movie, and I did leave a comment on that video after his passing, but I did want to acknowledge on camera too that while that video was addressing my concerns and my criticisms with his adaptation of Dune, there were also so many aspects of that movie that were quite revolutionary. So many ideas he brought to life in that movie that felt genuinely inspired. The world lost a legend, and his impact on the film industry will be felt for decades to come. And of course, in channel news, you can look forward to more longer videos in the future as well. I haven't given up on those. It is a lot easier to make Screen Factor videos though. The work has been a little slow, particularly because I've been busy in my personal life, but I do have videos in the work for you all that I'm very excited about. And of course, a huge thank you to my patrons, as always, Sean, Happy the Knife, and my top tier patrons, RD and Snowy. Thank you for continuing to support the channel and supporting me in my dream of being able to do this one day full time. This channel just recently celebrated its 5-year anniversary. It has changed a lot since its inception, but I love where it's at now, and that's largely thanks to you all for continuing to support me. And speaking of that support, we just passed 6,000 subscribers, which is crazy. Hi, welcome to the channel, and thank you all for choosing to subscribe and see what kind of videos I make in the future. I hope you're excited for those, because as always, I am too. And I'll see you hopefully soon for whatever the next video may bring. But with that, this has been the second episode of Screen Factor, and I will see you in whatever video I have planned next. I hope that you're excited for that, because I know that I am. And cut.